Happy Thursday, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to do a recorded lesson today just to try to save us some time, and then maybe I can meet with more students who need to catch up a little bit. So if you are staying on track, this is the lesson for you for today, okay? So we looked at Mrs. Lindquist's example yesterday, and we were just looking at the introduction at that time. As you work on your theme essay draft today, make sure you reference this mentor text if you need help or ideas. Okay, you will find it posted in Google Classroom under theme essay, mentor text, rubric, checklist. At some point in the future, I may add more to that just so that we have one place for all of our reference documents. So I want to remind you that essayists revise their essays. They pause every time that they've introduced some evidence from the text, pushing themselves to explain exactly what the evidence means and how it relates to ideas they are discussing. They can make sure they do this well by using a little bit of logic. We haven't talked a lot about logic, but I know just trying to make those connections has been difficult. So let's take a look at some examples today, how we kind of piece that together. Okay, so we'll do a quick logic lesson because this might help you find places in your essay that you need a little clarifying. Logic is about drawing a conclusion that no one can really argue against. Logical sequence that works would be all humans die. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates will die. Does that make sense? It's a super simple example. You put two ideas together to make a third. But logic gets sloppy when it involves emotion, right? This one was super straightforward. All humans die. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates will die. Super straightforward. Okay. Here's a logical sequence that doesn't necessarily work. Okay. She is really nice to me. I like her. Therefore, she likes me. That gets a little awkward, doesn't it? It can create a really uncomfortable social situation if you think that this is a logical order. It really doesn't work. Notice that the first two ideas don't necessarily add up to the third. Just because she's nice to me doesn't mean that she likes me, right? Someone can be nice to you and not like you romantically. They can just be like a kind person. So you've got to be really careful about some of these conclusions that you can jump to. And we see this a lot in our writing where we're adding two ideas together, but they don't necessarily come to the conclusion that's written. Okay, so I'm going to look back at my essay and see how I can make paragraphs stronger. First, we have to think about what am I trying to argue? Then we have to see if that connection is clear. If not, I need your help to revise it. Okay. In class, I would have had you writing these things out with me. I'm just going to lay it out with a couple of examples so that you can see how the process would work. Traveling 1,000 miles and keeping their 20-year appointment to the minute, Bob's loyalty to Jimmy is obviously unwavering. However, now that Jimmy's a policeman, his loyalties to Bob and to the law are put to the test when he discovers his old friend is a wanted fugitive. I was at the place on time. I saw the face of the man wanted by Chicago cops. That's actually not the exact quote, but you get the idea. I wanted to keep it really short, okay? Ultimately, Jimmy chooses to stay true to his values and have his old friend arrested. Okay. It's okay. It works. I have to fix that quote too, because that's not correct, right? But other than that, like, it's all right. I want to go back to my theme, okay? So I went back to my theme. My theme statement is the predominant theme of this short story is that loyalties to people and ideas can sometimes be difficult to maintain, especially when a person has to choose between the two, right? So I'm on the right track with that paragraph as an example, but it's not quite there yet, including that correction I have to make. So I have to think about how could I argue this a little bit better, maybe using some of that logical sequence, just like we did before. Okay, so here's my logical sequence. All humans have values. Sometimes values are in conflict. People have to make choices about their values when they are in conflict. Okay, so that makes sense. I wanted to focus on how Jimmy's values about his friendship and his morals, his obligations as a police officer, right, to uphold the law, are conflicted, resulting in a really difficult choice. Here's what I come up with. It's a little bit better. Whether people choose loyalty to a friend or choose to follow their own moral obligations, the difficulty of the choice and the consequences make it so that everyone involved is going to be upset. This concept is exemplified in the note Jimmy leaves for Bob. Bob, I was at the appointed place on time. When you struck the match to light your cigar, I saw it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. Somehow, I couldn't do it myself. So I went around and got a plainclothes man to do my job. Jimmy. Well, Jimmy made the right choice. It was not an easy one to make and will undoubtedly have consequences for both men. Bob will end up in jail for his crimes, while Jimmy will have lost an old friend by giving him up to the police. Okay, so I corrected my quote. I'm really focused on that specific conflict where he has to choose between a friend or his morals, loyalty or moral obligations. And I think that actually works a lot better. It follows my logical sequence much better. Okay, so here's your job. You are going to finish theme essay outline, specifically the introduction, and then you're going to use your process for thinking about theme and the theme essay outline, because you're going to be transferring some of that information over. Remember, you already gathered some of your evidence. Now you're going to be transferring it over to help you draft body paragraphs that follow those logical progressions that I just laid out. Okay. If you finish before the end of class, sign up for a conference with me. Let's take a look at what you put together to make sure you have those logical progressions put into place. Okay. That's our lesson for today. We'll do a couple of things in class, but beyond that, it is time for you to just keep on working. If you get stuck, if you feel like your evidence just isn't adding up, please reread your story. Reading your story many times, the more expert you are on the details of that story, the easier this task will be. So don't brush off the importance of getting